welcome back to Coven, episode 9, where we discuss our dream Coven roster.
I'm Reilly.
And I'm Jenna.
Welcome back.
We're your hosts.
From our break.
Yeah, from a break. Life has been crazy. I guess you usually start. I forgot about that.
Yeah. Do you want to restart? It doesn't matter. I don't care.
That's weird. No, I think it's fine.
Okay.
It felt weird when I was saying it.
Yeah, I was like, okay, she's just gone. It's fine. It literally does not matter.
Do you have tea today?
No, I just have water because I haven't had any water today.
That's
hey,
probably
listener,
good.
Have you had any water today? You should go drink some water
right
while
now.
you listen to this.
Yeah. Immediately. Water break.
Water break.
I don't have any water with me,
back.
But Penny, my cat's trying to disrupt us. No, thank you.
I locked mine out. We'll see how long that lasts before they freak out.
Well, yeah, it's been a couple weeks.
Yes.
Because life is crazy and it's eclipse season.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So.
And I literally didn't have my a space set up to record because I just moved, in case you didn't listen to our other episodes recently. I didn't have this set up until a couple days ago. So, but now here I am in my, doesn't really look like it on the video, but it's a pink
But look at those doors.
Look at my French doors.
They're beautiful. Those doors. I love it.
I'll be posting a home tour. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I mean, I want to see it, so.
I know. Someone asked me last night, we were hanging out with some friends, and they were like, oh, do you have any pictures of your new place? And I was like, literally the only picture I have is from when the movers dropped off everything, and it's just like a mountain of shit.
Have you started decorating more? Have you gotten a little bit more settled in?
No, I mean, the living room is set up for the most part. We still have some stuff to unpack, but we haven't put up all my art is right behind me.
Yeah.
We haven't put up anything. So
that's fun though. Yeah. It's also super on brand for the eclipse where it's activated in your chart. I was thinking about that. Yeah, because the eclipses in Aries and Libra are happening in your 4th and 10th houses. And fourth house. Well, that's, for example, last year, that was what was happening to me, or last, a year and a half ago and last year.
Okay.
It was in my 4th and 10th houses with Taurus and Scorpio. And that's when I moved 3 times and quit my job and moved back to Texas and a whole bunch of things. Yeah. I guess I moved back to Texas with the other one, but it's just all about activating your career centers, your long-term goals, your home life, and lots of moving happens when your 4th house is going through eclipse season.
Yeah. That brings me into my magic moment. So do you want to go into that? Okay.
Yeah, let's do it. What's your magic moment?
Yes. So for those who don't know, our magic moments are the part of the show where we talk about anything that's happened in our life recently that's been synchronistic, extra special, serendipitous, what have you, magical. So I'm going through a little bit of a transition, as you said, with my what house? My 4th house?
Which 4th and 10th.
My 10th house. Yeah.
Yeah. 4th and 10th. 4th is Libra for you, which is the lunar eclipse. And 10th is Aries, which is where the North Node and solar eclipse is happening. Okay. So that's the big stuff. The 4th house is still big, but it's kind of clearing out and changing and realigning.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I should just pull it up. I got astrology ho. I'm subscribed to anything that will give me a horoscope. So the Chani, how do you say her name?
I think Chani,
her horoscope recently from, I think it was just for Aries. I think it was for Aries season. I don't want to read the whole thing, but it essentially says that this is putting a big light on my career, and said even if you're inwardly battling self-doubt or imposter syndrome, which the transition that I'm having is like essentially a promotion, like I'm moving up, and I've been feeling like, am I even ready for this? Like, I don't know if I'll be able to handle it. Anyway, so it mentioned that. It says, you more naturally exude a sense of bold confidence over the coming month, so take calculated risks, which, like, yes, everything like around this whole transition with my job and stuff and starting to work with some new people has felt a little bit risky. But yeah, but I think it's going to pay off.
Yeah,
Hi,
definitely.
Penny.
Yes, this
I
is
was like, which
Penny.
one is
She's
that?
here. This is Penny, the one trying to ruin our podcast today.
No,
That's
she could
okay.
never. She
She's
could
trying to
never
help.
ruin it.
So squish.
I'm
That's
just reading
super
through the rest of it
exciting.
to see if there's anything else that I want to say.
Okay, also, my horoscope for you was
Oh
accurate.
yeah, I opened it, but I forgot to read all of it.
Fake.
But I will read it. No, I think it was a busy day that I opened it, and
That's
so
okay.
I like scrolled to the bottom to help your
the out or the like
yeah,
numbers.
yeah. And then I was like, I'll go back
Slay.
and read it later, and then I forgot to.
Okay, that's real. That's real. I feel like I don't
Yeah,
actually
exactly.
expect anybody to read it. Like when I send it, I'm always like, this is way too much and nobody's gonna read this. So it's more just
I
when
read
people
it.
tell
I read
me that
mine.
they do read it, I'm like, oh, that's so sweet. It feels good. But I truly
Yeah.
don't get offended when people do not read it.
Well, don't say that. You're like,
Oh,
at
I
least
mean,
just
read
subscribe
it.
to it.
Everybody, read it and subscribe to it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm sure if I had read Jenna's newsletter too, I would have been saying this about her and not Cheney, whatever her name is.
Shani.
Channy, whatever.
I believe.
But yeah, I read that and I was like, damn, that hits.
Yeah.
Like the imposter syndrome, the
Yeah.
like, okay, my career is like, yeah. And then I'm also just been talking about working, which I haven't told you about this because this just came up like yesterday, but been talking with my partner about potentially like working with him, but in the same like industry that I already work in, and like bringing like the
Oh.
kind of clients that I work with now into his like work
Ooh.
essentially.
That
Yeah,
would
so
be so slay of you
yeah,
guys.
and I could just start doing that like as like a side thing for now.
Yeah.
So, which
That
I've
would
never
be
been like a side thing kind of person. So,
yeah.
yeah.
I feel
But
like
so there's like, yeah,
yeah.
exciting. I've never really been excited about work before.
Yeah,
So
that's
this
all
is
really exciting.
yeah,
New.
I'm very excited and ready to yeah, I've never been excited about work before, and I've never been like, "Ooh, I want to be challenged and I want to learn
Mm.
more." Like I just don't feel that way about work stuff. But and like yeah, since I kind of changed my whole career uh plans and everything from like when I dropped out of nursing school, which I don't know if that's been mentioned yet on. Oh yeah, for sure it has because of like Hildegard and stuff.
Yeah, Hildegard, I feel
Um,
like.
yeah, but since then I've never been like, ooh, I really want to do this, and it's because of Jenna. Actually, I fell into what I'm doing now,
Damn,
and
that's true.
yeah, Jenna got me the first job I ever had in this industry, and it just kind of like snowballed and turned
It's true.
into now I'm
Yeah.
like about to work with one of the biggest companies in my industry, like in the city,
Yeah. No
in New York, whatever.
coincidences.
And yeah, for real. So I'm very grateful to all of this. I think about that a lot, just like what had to happen for me to get here, and like how silly my kind of like Devil Wears Prada esque job is,
Mm.
and how much I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And it's silly and it's fun, and people are great, and yeah, and I get to do cool stuff
Fun
with it.
things,
So
yeah, and you
yeah.
get to
So
travel.
yeah, I'm going back to
That's
San Francisco next
super
week.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, super excited. So good things are happening.
Very good things.
Your
It's
turn.
interesting. Yeah, it's I guess I'll include this in my magic moment too. I had a different
Mm-hmm.
one that I'll talk about, but with like
Mm-hmm.
the eclipse season and how accurate like the horoscopes are and just like with the eclipses and the houses, whatever.
Yeah.
It's happening in my 3rd and 9th house, which
Mm-hmm.
first of all of my placements are in my 3rd and 9th house. So it's
Oh, really?
beyond just, like my moon, my Chiron, my Venus, my north and south node,
Wow.
my Juno, my Saturn, like pretty much my whole chart is in my 3rd and 9th house.
Dang. That's crazy.
Yeah, so it is a very intense one, and it's a lot more going on than just what I'm about to say, but it's interesting
Mm-hmm.
because the 3rd and 9th house is the house of like learning and education and also writing and also
Mm-hmm.
podcasting and like speaking and like sharing your
Mm-hmm.
information. And I was
Yeah.
realizing the last Libra eclipse was the solar eclipse that happened October 14th. And I
Of
believe that
last
it,
year?
yeah, of 2023.
Okay.
And I
Mm-hmm.
believe that it was October 20th that I flew to New York and we had this idea formed.
Yeah.
And so it's just really
Yeah, that sounds right.
interesting
Yeah. Oh,
that like
shit.
full circle, like now with the Libra
Mm-hmm.
eclipse, like my brother finished our other logo and like that
Yeah.
just feels like kind of
Check
a
that out.
checkpoint. It's a
Check out our new
super
logo. It's really cute.
super sick logo. I love it.
Yeah.
But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so I just thought that was
Yeah.
funny. And I'm
Wow.
also just like writing in my journal every single day. And that was also the
Mm-hmm.
time period that I started writing about how I felt like I was going through a massive rebirth. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, also waiting to
Crazy.
hear back from school. I predicted that I would hear back today, and
Mm-hmm.
I haven't
And
heard
then you
anything
didn't.
back. So
Well, you still have a little bit of time on the
true.
West Coast, so.
We'll see.
But
But anyway, my magic moment is actually just, I don't know if it's magical or just kind of like weird, but the other night or the past like it was like 4 nights ago.
mm-hmm.
I woke up to my smoke alarm going off. I'm like in a
Mm-hmm.
separate house than I live with my sister. She's in the main house. I'm in like a separate little farmhouse. And I woke up at 4 a.m., 4:11 to be specific, to my
Mm-hmm.
smoke alarm. Also, the siren in the back, as I said that, is super
Yeah.
interesting. Anyway,
Okay.
uh, what? I'm like, what? Hello? Anyway, um, I woke up at 4 a.m. It went off for like 5 minutes. I first was freaked out because I was like, this place is not very well constructed. There could very well be a fire from like some electrical
mm-hmm.
thing. There was
Oh,
nothing.
shit. Mm-hmm.
And it was not like the low battery sound and it wasn't flashing like low battery. So I was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, that's weird. Maybe it just like picked something up.
That would
And then it
scare
went
me so
off.
bad.
Yeah, it did. It scared me. But then it went off after like 5 minutes and it was fine. Anyway, the next
You didn't
night,
just turn it off? You just let it
no.
go off?
Yeah, because I was like, well, maybe it like is trying to say something. Well, also I didn't want to like take it off. Like maybe it's like trying to like, I don't know, maybe there was something. I didn't want to, I don't know. It was too freaked out to
Okay.
like remove it in case there was actually something going on.
Okay. I mean, there should be just like a button you can press.
Yeah, like a gas leak or something.
Okay.
Anyway, the next night it went off and I was like, okay, that's fine. It didn't come back on. The next night it went off again at like 3 a.m. Also, my sister said their house, they didn't have anything go off.
Weird.
It went off again at like 3 a.m. the next night. I woke up
Mm-hmm.
to it and I was like, okay, well, that's weird. Maybe it'll turn off again. It did. I went back to sleep. 15 minutes later, it went off again. I was like, this is weird. Went up and checked it out. Tried to like press the button this time and was like, what's going on here?
Mm-hmm.
And it turned off when I pressed the button, whatever. Was trying to take it off the wall. Couldn't figure it out how to take it off the wall. Went back to bed. It went off again. And this time I was like, okay, this is super weird. Like the fact that it keeps
Mm-hmm.
coming on and off and it's like witching hour.
Yeah.
What's
I
going
don't like
on?
that.
What am I
I don't
like?
like that.
Yeah, like what's happening?
Mm-hmm.
Turned off again and then it went off went off another time. So 4 times total that night. And
That's
after the
weird.
4th time, I was like, okay, it was like 3:53, I think, when I checked my phone. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, maybe like what do you clearly something's trying to get my attention. And I'm like really getting into like synchronicities and just like really paying attention to those things. So I was like, okay. if this is synchronistic, I'll do whatever is being asked of me to do, like write whatever, and then please don't go off again. Let me sleep because I have to work at 5 a.m., 7 a.m.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I just like got out my journal and wrote whatever came to mind. And like there was some good stuff, but it wasn't like anything insane. And I also, the dogs were barking, and there was like another alarm that I heard, like I think a siren at the same time. And I was like, what is happening? But wrote all these things, and then I went to bed, and it never went off again. In the past 2 nights, it has not gone off. So
that's so weird.
Yeah. That's my kind of magic moment. I don't know what it is, but I mean, it didn't, kind of freaky moment, but it didn't feel, I wasn't like scared. Like it didn't, I was scared at first because I was like, there's a fire, but it didn't feel like haunted vibes. I was just like, what are you trying to, and even then when I was talking about it and the sirens, like, I'm like, what are you trying to say to me?
Dang.
Yeah.
I'd just be freaked because you're out in the middle of nowhere too. Not to scare you, but like that adds an element of spooky for sure.
For sure.
Dang, that's wild.
I feel pretty protected with my brother-in-law though.
Yeah,
true. He's very well equipped.
That's all I say on that.
That's all I'm gonna mention there. Anyway, let's get into the episode, shall we?
Okay. Yeah.
Let's start with the birth chart. This is the part of the show where I show Reilly. She doesn't know the person that I'm bringing to our coven today, and I am going to show her their birth chart, and she's going to give sort of a blind birth chart interpretation before we talk about the story of our person. So,
okay.
I'm going to share my screen.
I'm so uncomfortable with this.
Can you see it? Okay. So here is my assumed birth chart for my person. I laugh because it's a super guess. I like maybe know the year, but not even really that. And there's also not a ton of information about this person just in general. So I just kind of shot in the dark, said, this feels good. So you can be light with it. She has like a very definitive death date, and they think that she died around like 60 years old. And so I kind of did the math backwards for the year. But as far as everything else, I just said, fuck it. So what do you think? But honestly, it feels like it could work for her.
Okay. I think it's interesting. Just the first thing that struck me is that like on the bottom half, there's so much clustered together, and on the top half, everything is like I don't know if that even means anything, but everything's like spread apart on the top, and everything on the bottom is like boom, 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 like all clustered together.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely significant. I definitely think that is one of the reasons why I was like, yeah, that feels good for her.
Okay.
Also, for listeners, I guess we should explain. We should say the placement. We should say the placement. So, for the chart that I chose for her, I made her a Scorpio sun, Scorpio moon, Mercury in Libra, Venus in Sagittarius at 0 degrees, Mars in Scorpio, Jupiter in Aquarius, Saturn in Sagittarius, Uranus in Pisces, Neptune in Cancer, Pluto in Scorpio, North Node in Scorpio, Chiron in Taurus, and rising in Cancer, Midheaven, Aries. So, yeah. Wow. What do you think?
Okay. So much Scorpio, which, yeah, I see that there now. But, yeah, so much Scorpio, so much Sag, or it felt like, yeah, maybe not. I guess just a couple things in Sag. Can you go back to the other thing? Because I'm not good at reading the circle. What was your hint from last episode about this person?
I just said French, I think.
French. Is it Joan of
No.
Arc?
No. I thought about doing
Okay,
her, but it is not her.
Too well known.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I don't even really know her story. I just know her
Yeah.
name. But, was that a chicken?
Yes.
A
I know that you could hear that. Yeah, that's the rooster. A rooster. Oh, also, I didn't even realize.
Just French. That's the only thing I have to go
I didn't
off
even
of.
realize that this
What?
chart puts her born on a new moon. Exactly. Which that also makes sense.
Ooh, that's fun.
Oh my god. And that would mean a new moon and a lunar eclipse. No, sorry, solar eclipse. Wait, new moons happen.
How do you know it's a solar eclipse?
Because the north node is in Scorpio, which would make it, if the sun and the moon are conjunct, that's a lunar eclipse.
Oh.
No, solar eclipse. It's a solar eclipse. Yeah, it's a solar eclipse.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that, but I actually think that's extremely accurate. So, okay, I stand by my chart.
Accurate.
And I think that Cancer rising makes sense. I think that all the Scorpio makes sense. I think the Mercury in Libra makes sense. I really think that, going back to this one, all of this stuff down here makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, which before you've said, like, if the bottom half of the chart is heavy, that's a very, like, introspective person. And, like, not as concerned with, like, their external world. And with, like, all of those being, like, their, yeah, basically all of those placements being, like, not like the outer planets, like the more like personality planet type vibes and stuff. That makes me think that this person was not like an artist or a performer or anything of that sort that we've covered before.
Yeah. For sure. Think about all of that on the bottom half, but also the Scorpio with that.
Yeah.
Like, what is Scorpio? Scorpio known for?
Sex and death.
Okay, but besides that, I mean, yes, but besides that,
known for it in like what sense? Like in
just like one of the stereotypes of Scorpio. They're very like
brooding.
Yeah.
Very obsessive. Very. What are you trying to lead me to?
Yes to all of these things, but also they're like it's.
What am I wrong
You're not wrong about any of it. It's just it's funny because you're like saying all the things except for the one that I'm thinking of. They're very like private. They're like very closed off.
Oh yeah.
And so also with all of it in her fourth house, and or not just her fourth house, but down here it's like very like introverted and like private.
Yeah. Okay. I have no idea.
Yeah.
Like I'm like taking this in and trying to guess like what kind of person this is. I'm like maybe like but you said the Mercury in Libra is like really feels accurate. So I'm like, because I was gonna say maybe like some kind of like thought leader kind of person.
Yeah, for sure.
Like someone who would just be thinking about stuff all the time.
For sure.
And writing, but Libra with Mercury, I'm like.
Okay, well, Mercury in Libra is writer vibes to me, so you're correct about the writing.
Okay.
Also, Libra would be, I guess that's her fourth house, but yeah.
Libra's her fourth house?
Yeah. Well, because, yeah.
And Scorpio would be
her fifth house. Which I feel like, I don't know, maybe the Scorpio, all that in the fifth house makes sense, but maybe not the fifth house. I don't know. But honestly,
if it wasn't in the fifth house, what do you think would make more sense?
Probably like the fourth house or I guess she could be, honestly, maybe I should have made her Scorpio rising, because that would put the Libra and her Libra Mercury in her 12th house, and that would put all of this in her first house.
Okay. Well, shit. Yeah, now I'm like just curious to know who it. I'm like, get to the story because I just want to know what the fuck this person is about. Are you gonna tell me? Did I do enough? I'm ready.
So
Let's go.
my person that I'm doing is Marguerite Porete.
Cool. I have no idea who that.
She
You don't even have like a
okay,
titles
she's
for her. Like I do like
yeah, I know. I do that
this,
also.
their
She's
name.
a 13th century mystic and writer, author, um, and condemned heretic. uh, yeah,
Sick.
she was born in modern day Belgium, but it was the Holy Roman Empire, county of Hainaut, or whatever. I don't know if I'm saying that right at the time, and estimated around the year
Okay.
1250. So yeah,
Oh, okay.
she
Hildegard times
yeah,
ish.
couple hundred, right? Couple hundred years before Hildegard, or was Hildegard? When was Hildegard?
No, it was around the same time. I think that might have been like right after she
Oh,
died.
interesting. Oh yeah, Hildegard was
She's
before her.
old.
Interesting.
Oh, she died in
Okay,
1179.
so Marguerite was
Hildegard died in
probably
1179. So
influenced
like
by Hildegard.
I'm sure because also it's a very similar
Yeah.
area. Like she was in
Mm-hmm.
Germany, like Western Germany, I
Yeah.
think. So
Yeah, for sure. Anyway, so
yeah,
Marguerite,
and she was
she
yeah.
we really don't know much of anything, because most of her records and like story has been totally erased, and we'll get into the why. But common theme
Damn.
here with the people that we're bringing
Okay.
to our coven, inviting to our coven.
Yeah, for
Um
sure.
yeah, so not much is known about.
And we love a
Yeah,
heretic
of
in our
course we
coven.
needed a heretic. Which, like,
We definitely welcome a
heretic
heretic.
pisses me off with her, and you'll see why. Of course it pisses me off.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
so it's believed that her early life was spent as a beguine. Have you heard of that term?
I can picture it, but I don't
I had
remember what
never
it
heard of
means.
that term, but it was a very popular around that time way of life for spiritual women. They lived
Mm.
communally and devoted their lives to religion, but they followed no particular religious order, and they made no vows of poverty or chastity.
Oh.
So it was kind of a way
Oh.
for women at the time to
Interesting.
be like independent. Um, and for the most part, the church allowed it, as long as there was like a presiding uh, priest or somebody over the commune.
Interesting.
Yeah, but the thing is, and the Beguines, I guess in that time, even though it was very common, I guess it was also like not a very respectable thing to be. It was like one step up from
Yeah, I can see
living
that.
in a why am I blanking? Prostitute. What do they live in? Prostitutes. Brothel.
Brothel, prostitute
Brothel.
house. Yeah, because I guess you're an
Yeah.
independent woman, like associated with the church, but not really, and but you don't have to do all the
Right.
holy things that holy quote unquote
Yeah.
holy things that like nuns
Mhm.
are doing. So you can kind
And
of
you
just live
don't
your
have
life,
to
but you're
marry
also
a man, and
that's
you
really
don't have
interesting.
to be particularly useful to society.
Mhm.
Yeah, so being a Beguine was, and I think I'm saying that right,
Did you look it up?
Beguine. Yeah, I heard other people say it.
Okay.
It just feels kind of weird to say. I don't know. I feel like maybe it would be pronounced in another way. But anyway, um, yeah, so it was not very respected to be a Beguine. The thing is, knowledge of her being a Beguine or a Beguine, I think it's Beguine.
It's Beguine, yeah. A
uh,
vagina.
a
Took that up.
Beguine.
Sorry.
Knowledge of her being a Beguine comes
Mhm.
from like texts that were written about her, but
Mhm.
people who study her writing say that she's written several times that she was not a Beguine and
Hmm.
that she actually didn't like their lifestyle. She didn't really like really anybody supposedly of the day. Like apparently her her writing, she's kind of like, you guys are all doing it wrong and I don't really want to associate with any of you.
Yeah, that gives
Um,
Scorpio.
for sure. But yeah, in her writings, we know that she lived alone her whole life. She lived as a hermit, like her own personal ascetic life. Ascetic,
Gotcha.
are a word again.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So the a lot of people who study her think that the reason she was labeled as a Beguine was because it was like a kind of a way to just be like, oh, her, yeah, she was just a Beguine with some crazy ideas and to kind of get rid of her story.
Mhm.
So, what's interesting is that there's a lot of people who think that she was actually from a royal bloodline
Oh.
because the fact that she was living alone and like not in total poverty means that she had an income source
Yeah.
from somewhere,
Okay.
and we have no idea where that income source where she was getting money from.
Mhm.
And so people think that maybe she was in a royal family, and that's also why she was so erased, because they didn't want anything to do with like a heretic in their bloodline.
Yeah. Interesting.
So instead they were like, no, she was just a Beguine, she was just a crazy lady. Oh, and they also think maybe a
Dang.
royal bloodline due to her education and her writing. Like you can tell she was very highly educated. And
Yeah.
the tone of the dialogue, because her book that we'll talk about is
Mhm.
entirely, it's basically like a script that's like just
Mm.
dialogue, the whole book. It's like a
Yeah.
conversation. And the tone of the
Mhm.
conversation mimicked the tone that they used in like the high courts.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. That would make sense then for sure. Interesting.
But I want to talk about what she is really known for and why we
Mhm.
actually know about her today. She wrote, I think she probably wrote a lot of things, but the
Mhm.
one thing we know is attributed to her is a book called The Mirror of Simple Souls
Oh
that was 60,000 words
my god.
and is a dialogue between the personified characters of love, reason,
Mm.
and soul. So it's like soul having a discussion with love and
Yeah.
reason. And it's like reason being like, well, love, if you are this, then why this? And
Mhm.
love is
And it's
like,
very
you
like
stupid.
platonic,
Yes,
like
yes,
Plato
very much.
stuff.
Yes.
Very interesting.
Neoplatonism, everywhere that I looked, was attributing it to that. And
Oh.
apparently, Neoplatonism persisted as a really popular philosophy, even though they didn't know it as that
Mhm.
at the time. But apparently, the mystics of the Middle Ages were very much connected to that Neoplatonic
Mhm.
philosophy.
And
So
I
that
would
makes
assume,
sense.
I actually almost, I thought you were going to say this when you said that she was very highly educated. And then the way that you said that her writing was very, was like a dialogue style. I thought you were going to
Mm.
say like people think that her writing was influenced by Plato with like yeah, with the dialogue
Mm.
aspect and the
Yeah.
like highly educated. I would expect
Yeah.
that to be like, of course they would, like if you're highly educated you would have read the
Right.
like classical
The
philosophy and stuff.
classics,
So
especially in
mm-hmm.
that time.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a
Okay.
lot of people who study
Okay.
why her book was so popular because we know it was really, really popular during her lifetime. It was like wildfire spreading. Everybody had a copy. It was like the hot book. A lot of people think it's because she was writing something that was so close to like the church, what the church said, but framing it in a way of like total independence, and like you can have this direct relationship to God, and actually you are God when it comes down to it. And that was like, but like the things she was saying, I guess the way that she was writing the book, a lot of it really aligned with the church at the time, the church's beliefs and stance. So the church actually supposedly was not upset at her book, like the things that she wrote. That's not why they didn't like it, because it was like close enough to the church doctrine that they weren't really bothered by it. But what upset them, and what it was popular for, what a lot of other historians think it was popular for, is because she wrote it in the vernacular French of the day rather than Latin, like the common French language rather than Latin, which, as you know, as we discussed in Hildegard, with Hildegard, all of the religious texts were supposed to be in Latin because Latin was a sacred language. But in reality, what that meant was it's a secret language, and none of you guys know what it is. Only we know.
Yeah.
And
to make it inaccessible for the common person to understand what was going on. Yeah.
Exactly. And so Marguerite was like, she knew Latin, but she was like, why would I do that when my message is supposed to be for everyone?
Yeah.
So that's really what bothered the church. Supposedly, that's what the church said bothered them at the end of the day.
That's so silly.
I know. And one other common thing in her book that I found interesting, just like a synchronistic kind of thing, she discusses the 7 stages of life with the soul, beginning the 7 stages of life of the soul, beginning with being touched by grace and extending to the indescribable 7th stage after death. And I just thought that that was interesting, the 7 stages, that number, because the Gospel of Mary Magdalene talks about the 7 powers, the 7 stages of grief and the 7 powers to ascension.
Yeah, and like 7 is like I was even taught that in normal whatever in church growing up, that like 7 is like God's number essentially.
Yeah, 7 is a very like
creation and all of that.
Yeah. Mary Magdalene is the 7 steps to ascension, and then there's the 7 phases of grief. There's the created the world in 7 days. And then in numerology, 7 relates to creativity, intuition, mystery, solitude, and darkness. And it's said to be ruled by Neptune, so an obvious connection to mystics. So anyway, her book is making the rounds. People are loving it. The king at the time is King Philip IV, otherwise known as King Philip the Fair. And what this guy's popular for is executing by fire the Knights of Templar. Are you familiar with the Knights of Templar? Fair?
Only as it, I'm like, that doesn't sound very fair, Philip.
I know, that's why I made sure to say his name, because I think it's so hilarious.
Interesting. I'm familiar with the Knights of Templar in as far as they are like related to cult stuff.
Yeah, they're an interesting. They have like a ton of also mystery around them, but they were really popular. The Pope loved them. The Pope like blessed them and said that they were good, and so they were like working for the church as like protectors of like pilgrims to the Holy Land. So they would like fight off Islamic raids, and they started the first banking system, modern day banking system.
Wow.
because they would let pilgrims deposit assets into their homeland, like at their homeland before they made their pilgrimage, and then allowed them to
Wow.
collect funds once they reached the Holy Land. So
Interesting.
that's like what they're most popular for. But then they just became more and more powerful, and they had more and more like exceptions. Like they were tax exempt, and they were like unable to be touched, basically. The Pope Innocent II issued a bill that allowed the Knights of Templar special rights. So they were exempt from paying taxes. They were permitted to build their own oratories and were held at no one's authority except for the Pope. So a lot of power. And Philip the Fair, our very fair king, was like,
Debatably fair.
um, was like, I don't like that I don't really have power and I'm the king.
Yeah.
So I want to take more power, but I'm not going to like attack the church because that's a big no-no and obviously wouldn't
Yeah.
go well. But the Knights of
Yeah.
Templar, they're like shady men. And so he like convicted them of a bunch of things, some of which include homosexuality, which
Dang.
they were tortured into admitting that they were gay, basically. But also a lot of
Were
people
they
think that
actually, or they just like?
there's like that's where a lot of the mystery is, because a lot of people think, because like obviously they swore like to chastity and all of these things, basically like monks, but they were basically like fighting monks, I think. And super secret. And they had a bunch of weird things. Like they weren't allowed to kiss their
Yeah.
mother, and they weren't
Right.
allowed to wear pointy shoes.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of mystery.
Interesting.
Some people do think that they were gay. Other people think that they were just like tortured to the point where they finally were like, okay, yeah, I'm gay, because they were like trying to find something to
Yeah.
convict them on.
Dang, that's crazy.
Yeah,
I'm
crazy.
about to do a
Anyway,
deep dive on the Knights of Templar.
I know. Super interesting. Well, fun fact, a lot of people think that they continued underground after their execution and are like the modern day Freemasons, or that the
Yeah, right.
Freemasons originated from that.
Which is the cult tie-in that I'm aware of.
Yes, yeah. But I think Freemasonry was different, and it was like very clearly like we're based on the Knights of Templar. But
Yeah.
some people think that like the actual Knights of Templar like continue, and they think
Oh,
that's
okay.
like that's where people think like the Holy Grail is held
Right,
with
yeah.
the Knights of Templar. So
Yeah.
have you ever seen Monty Python
Yes.
and the
Yeah.
Holy Grail? So
Yeah, I
I
have.
made that connection that they're the Knights of Templar
Yeah.
because they're wearing their uniform. I never put that together, so I think that's
Yeah.
hilarious. But anyway, unfortunately, the Knights of Templar, the Grand Master was burned at the stake along with like I
Damn.
think like 7 of them by King Philip the Fair. And
Dang.
yeah, so he had just finished with that whole execution thing, and so he was kind of on a roll. And
That whole execution thing.
he was
Okay,
like
continue.
going a little crazy with it, and he was like, yeah, this is great, like I'm gonna take my power back, like all these people love me now, and
Okay.
like just liking his power, feeling a little bit threatened by anybody who threatened it. Marguerite was an obvious easy target because her book was so non-traditional. She was a hermit that people didn't really know much about, and she was doing things that were sort of against the church, not really against the church, but kind of against the church. And so she was put on trial for heresy. And apparently at her trial, there was one man who stood up and defended her and was like a devout follower of hers. And she said nothing. He defended her. He was like, no, like she's the real deal. She's amazing. She said nothing. She gave no response. She was up there
Wow.
deadpan. They were like, you need to pull your book from circulation. They also burned every copy of her book.
Wow.
But she kept printing it. She kept making copies. And they were like, you need to renounce your book and stop making copies. And she was like, she like didn't say anything. She ended up going to prison for a year, and so did the man. Oh. And then I think she got out after that, if I'm not mistaken, and he ended up renouncing her because he was threatened execution. And he was like, okay, yeah, I don't like her. Yep, she's like, fake.
I'm not that, I'm not ride or die.
Yeah, it's not like that.
I don't want to do that.
Yeah. But I think she got out, but then she like started printing it again and doing the same thing and writing. And so she was put on trial again. And they were like, girl, just stop. Just shut up. And she, again, didn't say a single word, like supposedly was just completely silent. Mm-hmm. So she was charged with relapse heresy. And she is put to death by fire.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Jesus so Christ. she is executed by being burned at the stake in a witch trial. For heresy, though, not as a witch. And apparently her execution was extremely widely attended, like a very big crowd. And people were everywhere.
Can you imagine for a second? Can you imagine? Like, that was so normal for a very long time to just
people go watch somebody burn to death. Yeah.
Go watch someone die. Like, I don't know. I feel like like with all the murder stuff that I listen to and like shit like that, like I'm just like, I think about death all the time and how like freaky it is, and like, I don't know. And I'm just like, why do you want to go watch someone die? That's anyway, that's insane to me.
It makes me wonder.
Is anyone questioning that?
Right, for sure. And it makes you wonder, like, what things are so common today that we do that in like a few hundred years, people are going to be like, how were they all just doing that? Like, that's insane. Social like, media. Same kind of thing. For real. Social media. The way that we use technology in general is just like, scary.
Anyway, insane.
Anyway.
Okay. Poor girl burned at the stake.
Yeah, she's burned. Peace. And in front of a massive crowd.
So terrible.
Yeah, who apparently this crowd was very like moved by her and by her sincerity. And the word that I kept seeing people use was piety. And I thought that was an interesting word choice, but like everything that I read and heard used that word. Like people were very moved by her piety. I'm like curious where that word is introduced. I think it's probably in like the reports of her execution. And I'm like, I feel like, I don't know, something about it feels off, because I'm like, would she feel remorseful? Is that why people were moved? Or were people moved by something else and they put in piety because that makes it seem like people were crying because they felt bad that she like repented and she actually like did decide that she was in the wrong, you know?
Yeah.
It's all speculation, but it's weird to me that word was so prevalent everywhere I looked, when everything prior was saying that she was like very strong in her conviction about her book being like, she's this. So I'm like, maybe she like said something, or maybe her reaction was more just like strength and like whatever, fine. And that's what moved people. But anyway, whatever the case, people were very emotional about her. More than most people dying, I guess.
More than most people being burned at the stake.
Right.
Also, like, probably got to be one of the worst ways to die.
Yeah, for sure.
Like,
for
so
sure.
Terrible. So terrifying. It makes me literally want to throw up.
Yeah, absolutely terrible. So The last thing that I just want to share is just a couple passages from her book, so you can kind of get the
Yeah.
idea of her writing. She's
Mm-hmm.
very wordy. Sometimes it gets a little confusing, so bear with me.
Love that.
But
Me
it's really
too, girl.
beautiful. The main message of the book, I think the core, what it seems like, is that to become one with God requires total annihilation of the soul and identity. Um, which, is a pretty
Mm.
popular mystic take.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of
Yeah.
people hear annihilation and get really turned off by that, like annihilate your soul. But I
Mm-hmm.
think just knowing what I know about Neoplatonism and like Christian mystics, I think I understand what she means by that.
Mm.
Like really annihilating your perceived identity to become your
Yeah.
true identity.
Yeah.
So some of the quotes. She says, Love says, "Ah, reason," says Love, "you will always see with one eye only, you and all those who are nurtured by your doctrine. For the man is indeed one-eyed who sees the things which are before his eyes, yet does not know what they are. And this is the case with you."
Mm.
That's apparently a popular theme throughout the book, a motif where Love is constantly like, reason, you're half blind.
Mm-hmm.
And
Interesting.
then this one. "And who are you, Love?" says Reason. "Are you not also one of the virtues and one of us, even though you be above us?" Love says, "I am God," says Love, "for Love is
Mm.
God, and God is Love. I am this soul. I am, and this soul is God through its condition of love, and I am God through my divine nature, and this soul is God by Love's just law."
Yeah, this is so, I feel like I don't remember what it was, but something that I read in my college time was yeah, I don't remember what it was. It might have literally been called just like Love or something, but it was by Plato and
Mm,
it sounded pretty much exactly like that.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
That
Mm-hmm.
is super interesting. Yeah, I didn't really make that connection directly to Plato. I definitely was thinking about like Neoplatonism and all of those
Mm-hmm.
philosophies, but the literal
Yeah.
Plato
Yeah, like it sounds,
similarities,
it's very
Platonic.
similar style. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
Like of, yeah, of like love talking to a different virtue about being, yeah. Yeah, it's very
Yeah,
similar. I don't
very
think they say
inspired by
like,
that.
I don't think Plato talks about God
Right,
that explicitly, if I am
right.
remembering correctly, but like, yeah, the same kind of like, yeah, personified
Yeah,
virtues speaking to each
right.
other about,
And
I am this and you are that. Mm-hmm.
I do think Plato like refers to God a lot, but yeah, I think you're right that like he's not like explicitly saying it. Like he's
Mm-hmm.
like kind of like a metaphor alluding to
Mm-hmm.
like a god source.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I want to say it's more like a universe
Yeah,
vibe, and
right.
not like God said this, because there wasn't
Right.
that in that culture. So
Yeah,
very, very
definitely.
interesting. Do you have more to
Yeah.
share, or is that it?
I
Go ahead.
yeah, I'll share one more. So, ah, love, says Reason. When are such souls in the true freedom of pure love? And Love says, when they have no longing, no feeling, and at no time any affection of the spirit, for such customs would enslave them, being too far
Mm.
away from the peace of freedom in which few men permit themselves to dwell. And also they do nothing, says Love, which is opposed to the peace of their inner being. And so in peace they bear the orders of love. So that's a really interesting like perspective on it.
Yeah.
Which again, I think I understand what she's saying, but yeah, she's like, they are nothing.
Yeah.
like when people are in the freedom of pure love is when they become nothing. And to become nothing
Mm-hmm.
is to return to the true self.
Mm.
And yeah,
Yeah.
that's like a really uncomfortable message.
Yeah,
So
for
it's
sure.
interesting to me that the church wasn't necessarily calling her a heretic for that. They were just
Mm-hmm.
calling her a heretic for writing in French.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, of course, like Christianity has the, and the Bible has the themes of like deny yourself
Mm-hmm.
to become like God.
Right.
And like, yeah. So I can
And
see some
again,
threads, but it's not nearly that like philosophical too.
Yeah, right. But again, that's a very like, Buddhist, Hindu idea as well.
Yeah.
I have a
Very
lot of noise
interesting.
happening now too. But anyway, for Marguerite's dedication and commitment to her work, to her lifelong quest of asceticism and writing and sharing her truth, even in the face of being burned alive and being so passionate about what she has to say and share and leave with the world long after she's gone. I think that she is a very good addition to our coven. This is why I've welcomed Marguerite Porete into our coven.
Welcome. That was great.
Welcome, Marguerite. Yeah, and it's funny because the more that I research these people, the more similar ones I find. I'm like, there's actually so many medieval mystics.
Yeah.
So it's like that pool is never
next week.
ending.
I need to not do a mystic.
A mystic.
No mystics allowed. We need to challenge ourselves.
Especially the Christian mystics. There's a lot of those.
Because we could just keep going down and down, and then this becomes a Christian mystic podcast.
Totally. I guess I didn't know before we started this that there were so many of those, but it's kind of funny. And they really all do say the same thing in different ways, but it's still like really fun to learn about them, and they're still really amazing, incredible people. With really fascinating, important stories. But definitely. I definitely think she's hanging out with Hildegard.
Yeah, maybe fangirling over her.
For sure, because Hildegard was close enough in her life. Yeah. Hi, Marguerite.
Cool. Hi, Marguerite. Welcome.
You deserved better, and you were right that everybody in your society sucked. So.
Yeah, she's like, I was born in the wrong era. She's one of those girls.
Do you have a hint about yours next week?
I don't know who I'm doing yet. So.
I thought you said you had one.
I don't remember who it was.
You said, I found it. She fell into my lap.
Yeah, literally no idea. That was weeks. That was weeks ago at this point.
True.
I have to go through my notes. Yeah, but so no, mine will be a complete surprise, but I'll give you a hint when we do their reading.
Yeah. Okay,
so
that's
that you
fair.
Don't have nothing to go off of.
Not totally in the dark. I mean, my French was not really anything to help you. I am also like, maybe we should bring in a man.
I won't be doing that, but you're more than welcome to.
Not participate. It was just a thought I had.
Well, yeah, I mean, like that's not allowed.
Yeah, I was like, maybe I'll try to find like the perfect specimen. He has to be like, he's got to be a very unique man.
Yeah, probably not straight.
I was going to say probably gay.
Probably gay.
Yeah, it's hard to find people with like a spiritual, esoteric side to them that are not mystics. Okay. Thanks for joining us on another episode of Coven. Tune in next week for Reilly's surprise person.
It's a surprise to me too at the moment. So
it's gonna be great.
We'll see you next week. Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks for joining our coven this week. You can find all sources used in the show notes. Don't forget to rate, review, and follow on all platforms, and like, comment, and subscribe on our YouTube channel. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok at coven.pod. Send us your magic moments and witchy recommendations at covenpod333@gmail.com. This has been a Stars Etc. production. Coven is written, researched, and edited by Jenna Scott and Reilly Hale. Music by Jeffrey Boyle and Jenna Scott.